on the road, my friend, is going to make you free and clean. And now you wear your skin like iron. And I could think that was me.
Living on the road, my friend.
Have you ever thought about how someone can be very famous, sing to millions of fans, and die with no money? Isn't it crazy? In public, these country music stars seem to have it all. Hit songs, shiny awards, and the kind of lives most people only dream of. But things weren't always that way. Some people lost everything. Some people gave it all away. Some people just couldn't go on. Do not leave me, because you need to hear what really happened to them. Number 15. Ferrron Young. He had everything. In the 1950s, Ferrron Young was the star. He was clean-cut and had a smooth voice, and he had fans from coast to coast. As a Capitol Records artist, he had hit after hit, and he lived like he thought the attention would never go away. He bought land, put money into publishing, and even started Music City News to help new stars find their voice. However, country music fame doesn't come with a seatbelt, and when things go wrong, they go wrong really badly. As country music changed in the late 1980s and early 1990s, radio stations began to say that his music was out of date. Sound from yesterday, they said. Everything changed with that one line. The music he was playing stopped. Concerts went more slowly. To stay alive, he sold everything, even his catalog, which was the result of a lifetime's work for a lot less than it was worth. In his own story, Ferrron turned into a ghost. There were a lot of bills. Opportunities went away. It was quiet around the man who used to make people laugh and sing. He could not get rid of the depression that crept in like a fog. In 1996, on a cold December day, he made a choice that shocked everyone. He ended everything. A life that used to light up stages was now gone in quiet pain. The most horrible part? It seemed like he was never there when the country music kept going. Millions of people used to find comfort in his words, but now it was just a whisper that no one wanted to hear. Ferrron did fall, but it wasn't the first time. It was the start of a painful trend. Now, it was time for the next man, whose smooth twang made legends, but whose story ended in sadness before he turned 50. Let's talk about Lefty Friselle. Number 14. Lefty Friselle. Lefty Friselle changed the game before most country stars even knew how to hold a mic. Not only did he have a smooth voice,
When I lost the heaven I found.
but it was the voice that made stars like Merle Haggard and George Jones. He had friends, fame, and Cadillacs parked outside every show by the time he was in his mid-20s. You can still make bad deals when you're in the spotlight, and Lefty did just that. His contracts made him famous, but they kept him from being free. Even though the checks got smaller, the way of life didn't change. The hits stopped coming over time, but the bills kept coming. He spent even more money on a life that wasn't giving him anything in return. That person drank more and owed more money. In the end, the IRS showed up. To buy some time, Lefty had to sell the copyright rights to the songs that made him famous. Still, time ran out. He gave his guitar with diamonds to someone else, put down roots in a plain rental flat. It was hard for the man who used to be #1 on the charts to stay afloat. The business world didn't show up when he died at age 47 of liver failure. His funeral wasn't fancy with suits and lighting. Just a few close friends got together to say goodbye. The same business that built him forgot him the moment he slipped away. But what happens when a country patriot fights back and still loses everything? Let's talk about the outlaw who made leaving your job a national anthem and ended up having to beg to stay alive. Next up is Johnny Paycheck. Number 13. Johnny Paycheck. He was loud, proud, and never gave up. To country music fans, Johnny Paycheck was the bad boy. He was the voice of workers everywhere who were fed up with being pushed around. He didn't just sing the truth in songs like "Take This Job" and "Shove It." He screamed it. However, the rough picture hid a storm that no song could calm. Johnny had a taste of real fame. It was impossible to get into one of his shows because they were always full, but the money went away just as quickly as it came in. He used the money to buy harmful substances, pills, and lawyers. By the early 1990s, his crazy way of life caught up with him, and he was sent to jail. His voice was still strong, but the business had changed. Everything he used to own was gone when he got out of jail. Even his tour bus and home had been taken by the IRS. He wasn't just broke, he was gone. He ended up at petrol stations, where he begged for money and lived off his memories. His health also got worse. It was hard to sing and stay alive when you had asthma or pneumonia. Back-to-back trips and big farewells had stopped by the time he died in 2003. There is quiet around a man whose defiant song once shook the country world. His name lived on, but his legacy was lost in a sea of unpaid bills and broken vows. You thought that was bad? Just wait until you hear about the country star who had 70 #1 hits, but saw everyone forget about him when the British music wave came along. The next story is about Hank Lachlan, and it's even more powerful. Number 12. Hank Lachlan. A long time ago, Hank Lachlan's name was on every radio in the United States. He was very famous on the Grand Ole Opry for songs like "Send Me the Pillow You Dream On." He wasn't just a singer. His voice was comforting, warm, and full of hope. And for a while, it brought in lots of people, money, and hope. He never stopped touring, took his sound around the world, and was the face of country music before anyone knew how deep it went. The money didn't stay golden, though. Only his voice did. The deals he made were better for the record companies than for him as an artist. Royalties? Small. It didn't seem to matter to organizers that Hank was booked when the British invasion hit the American charts in the 1960s. The crowd went somewhere else. The radio changed. Even the crowd at the Grand Ole Opry started to get smaller. He kept putting out songs and kept hoping that things would get better. But it didn't work. No way back. Not any new trips. And not much help. He finally got back to Brewton, Alabama, where he quietly faded away from the world he had helped make. He dedicated decades of his life to country music, but didn't get much in return when it meant the most. The 91-year-old Hank Lachlan died in 2009, but no one was happy about it. His name didn't really go viral. It was no longer possible to remember or respect them. But his last years would have been very different if he had been paid what he was worth. Hank was pushed into the background by time, but the next star was afraid of something much worse: being robbed in his own home. Even the cops were shocked by what they found after David "Stringbean" Aikman was killed. Number 11. David "Stringbean" Aikman. With his banjo, he made people laugh, smile, and clap. David "Stringbean" Aikman was the funny guy in braces on Hee Haw. He always knew how to steal the show without saying much. That being said, Stringbean didn't trust banks. Not fans, not co-stars, not even close friends. He thought his money was safest inside the walls of his house because he grew up during the Great Depression. So he kept it for himself. Hidden money behind walls, under the floor, and even in the chimney. There were thousands of dollars just sitting there. He didn't let success change the way he lived or the clothes he wore. When he wasn't on stage, he was serious about security. In 1973, word began to get out about the secret money. Two guys broke into his cabin after a show because they thought they could get rich right away. They were not ready for Stringbean and his wife to arrive home early. The theft turned physical. They were both killed by gunfire on their front porch. The killers ran away in fear before they even got the money. After many years, when the cabin's new owners moved in, they found old piles of bills hidden everywhere. He had tried to protect all that cash, but it didn't help him get out of danger. Stringbean didn't trust anyone and tried to keep what little he had safe. But in the end, the fear that made his life what it was came back to kill him. In death, the money didn't mean anything. Number 10. Bla1 Foley. He wasn't showy. He wasn't after awards or fame. Bla1 Foley, on the other hand, had a raw ability that made you stop and listen. You could feel the pain in songs like "If I Could Only Fly." They didn't just sound good, they felt like they came from someone who knew it better than anyone else. His heart was too big for the world around him, and he played the guitar. Bla1 has never had his own home. He slept in pickup cars, moved from couch to couch, and put duct tape on his clothes to stay alive, not for style. He didn't try to get record deals. He didn't believe in fame. He thought music should be shared, not sold, so he gave songs away as gifts. Being kind doesn't always pay the bills, though, and Bla1's life never turned out to be the happy ending that everyone thought it would be. He helped people and looked out for friends who were in danger. He also never gave up on the idea that music could change people's lives. That same loyalty got him killed in 1989. During a fight, he was shot while protecting a crippled friend. During the search, the rescuers only found $30 and a rubber tick that would bounce higher than he had hoped. Some people didn't really understand what they lost until many years later. His songs have been performed by artists like Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard. He left a bigger mark on the world, but Bla1 missed it. He died without a place to live, money saved, or a safety net. He only left behind a story and some scribbled words. What about the next person on our list? If Bla1 died without being known, that person was already famous while he was alive. He was a troubled genius who gave away his royalty checks and forgot where they went. The next story is about Townes Vanzant. It hurts, too. Number 9. Townes Vanzant. Some artists write songs. Townes Vanzant hurt them. Not only were his words deep, they were also haunting and sad, in a way that doesn't go away when the music stops. Poncho and Lefty, Waiting Around to Die, and If I Needed You were not hits. They were sad songs about heartbreak that were dressed up as folk songs. You couldn't miss his ability, but you could feel his pain. The bipolar illness that Townes had showed up in every part of his life. He would be great one day, either playing for huge crowds or writing something that people would never forget. The next day, he would disappear for a night into a bottle, quiet, or someone's couch. He got royalties, but he didn't cash them very often. He would sometimes just hand them off to someone close. He only cared about music and not money. The world does, though, and that caught up with him in the end. He moved around a lot, stayed with friends, played wherever they would have him. And by the time he was in his 50s, years of harmful substance abuse and illness that wasn't treated had totally worn him down. Townes died of heart arrhythmia on January 1, 1997. He was badly hurt and barely able to hold on. His songs will always be played with stars on top. Musicians study it. But Townes himself, he took nothing with him, not even peace. Before Townes, the next man died quickly in a plane crash that took away one of the country's most beautiful sounds and put his family in a legal mess. That's all Jim Reeves had, until he lost it all. Number 8. Jim Reeves. It's not enough that Jim Reeves sang country music. He also made the genre better. He made a big difference in the Nashville sound, which included hits like Welcome to My World and He'll Have to Go. Your voice sounds smooth, like silk. He had his own planes, raised cattle, and lived a fancy life, so it looked like he had made a lot of money from singing. But kings can fall quickly. This happened in 1964, south of Nashville. Jim's small Beechcraft plane was involved in an accident. He really did not make it. The next few events were not a tribute. They were a storm in the courthouse. This person's name will not be remembered with respect. Instead, it will be linked to bad behavior. For many years, he and his wife, Mary, fought over things that shouldn't have happened. Through Jim's earnings, his estate was able to build up a large amount of money after he died. Is most of that money cash? She didn't understand it. Several of his business partners had known him for a long time, and they took everything he had left behind. It was necessary for Mary to pay a mortgage, take on more debt, and pay court fees in order to stay in their house. Every day, Jim's song kept playing on the radio, even though his family was having a hard time making ends meet. Some people were affected by the songs he wrote. It will always be possible to feel his impact. The man who was hidden behind those words, though, never got the safety he needed. The people he loved the most had to pick up the pieces. Number 7. Gram Parsons. The way Gram Parsons dressed, played, and lived made him seem like he was in a race against something that couldn't be seen. He had real money behind him, inherited a lot of money when they were only 21, and instead of building a kingdom, he destroyed it in record time. Harmful substances, wild nights, and years lost. He didn't go any fast, not even when tons of signs said not to. He mixed country, rock, folk, and soul before anyone else did, which is what made cosmic American music so great. He changed the sound of the genre for good, both with the Flying Burrito Brothers and on his own. But his ghosts would not let go. His health was getting worse as his voice got higher. He either smoked, sniffed, or lost every dollar he had. He failed to stop taking harmful substances in a hotel near Joshua Tree in 1973. 66. After that, the story got even stranger. His friend stole the coffin before it could be flown home and tried to burn it in the desert, just like Gram had asked. But neither Gram's life nor her death went in a normal way. The stunt didn't work. The body was found, and what little money he had was lost in lawsuits and uncertainty. His ashes will never be at peace. His money didn't either. The money he used to have was gone long before his voice stopped. His estate was a mess. Gram's story isn't just sad. It seems impossible. The next man slowly died while the first one went out in flames. He did odd jobs to keep the lights on. Larry John Wilson was praised by Rolling Stone, but he had no one to back him up when it counted. Next is his fall, which hurts a lot. Number 6. Larry John Wilson. Larry John Wilson had the kind of voice that made you stop whatever you were doing. Real, deep, and raw. He was praised by many. He was named by Rolling Stone as one of the most important Southern musicians of the 1970s. Soul, folk, and country music all came together on his records in a way that made them feel like gospel for working people. But radio stayed quiet, while the business world cheered. Regular country music didn't know how to use Larry's sound. Too honest, too rough around the edges, and too true in a world that wants something flashy and smooth. As record companies looked for the next big thing, Larry became the person they didn't want to sell. The airplay stopped. Concerts stopped happening. The dream became very slow. He got out of the spotlight and did any job he could find to make money. Tire stores, driving a truck, kids who didn't know they were learning from a great played guitar with him. He wasn't mean, he was just broke. He slowly came back in the early 2000s with independent films and specials, but the big time never called again. He went to the hospital in 2010 because of chest pain. A stroke killed him a few days later. There was no rise in the charts. There is no memorial show. Nothing but silence. David John Wilson was important. People were touched by his voice. In the end, though, music wasn't enough to keep the lights on. Larry lost his fame and started doing odd jobs. The next artist, on the other hand, was once one of the most important speakers in the country. But bad investments and betrayal took it all away. Hank Snow helped Elvis get famous. When it all fell apart, though, no one helped him. Number 5. Hank Snow. Hank Snow was the king of country music for many years. He didn't just break records with hits like I'm Movin' On, Golden Rocket, and I've Been Everywhere. He made history. More than 140 songs, over 85 hits on the Billboard charts. He also brought Elvis Presley to the attention of the Grand Ole Opry for the first time. But even though he was famous, people still used him. Hank put his trust in people he shouldn't have behind their back. Managers promised him success, but quietly took all of his money. He spent all of his money on a huge ranch in Tennessee, which was his ideal vacation spot. But his dream turned into a nightmare when floods destroyed the land and took all of his money. Things got worse. His own son, who was supposed to take care of some of his estate and trips, messed up everything. The cash ran out. The relationship broke down. There was quiet around the man whose voice used to be heard all over the world as he watched it all go away. It was too late when he finally got back some of the money he had lost. In 1999, Hank Snow passed away at his Tennessee ranch called Rainbow Ranch. His fortune wasn't even enough to cover the cost of his old tour bus. Everyone got to hear his stories, feel his pain, and see his soul. But the business didn't give him anything back. Hank was robbed by the people who were closest to him, but the next man just disappeared. He was lost in his own thoughts and sold Bibles on the street, while his songs with someone else's voice topped the charts. Tom Collins built country music, but he died poor and unremembered. Number 4. Tommy Collins. While Tommy Collins was a famous person in the country music business, he was never the center of attention. His impact could be felt across the whole business. It was his help that the Bakersfield sound came about. It is real, raw, twangy, and powerful. A lot of record singers like Merle Haggard and Buck Owens have used his songs. He was the one who made stories possible, made well-known songs. The light went out after that, and no one turned around to look back. After a long time of being depressed, Tommy finally got better. He walked into a field and left his car stopped there. He didn't come back before leaving the field. There was neither a sign nor a plan. After he made his findings, no one from the business world called him. There was no sign of them left. After a certain point, Tom's sound could no longer be heard on the charts. His phone calls were not being answered, and his bills were getting too high, so he stopped listening to music. He went to college because of the Bible. Following this, they went door to door to sell Bibles. People who were fans of his music were cashing checks, but he was barely making enough to cover his own costs. Even though his name was in the record notes, it wasn't in any bank accounts. When he tried to make a comeback, he had trouble with the lyrics and melodies of his show. No one could remember Tommy Collins, and it was too late when they did. He didn't have much when he died in the year 2000. No matter what, Tommy is the first thing that comes to mind when a great Merle Haggard song plays. Besides the man, though, but this is not the sound. The life that lies beneath it is just not that. Number 3. Johnny Horton. Johnny Horton could not be stopped. People all over the world knew his song, The Battle of New Orleans, which also won him a Grammy. He had a special style that mixed country music, history, and stories in a way that made you remember them. His speech was strong, clear, and full of will. He was on every radio station. His hits were on every record shop shelf. He was at the top of his game. Then it was over in one night. Someone who was drunk hit Johnny's Cadillac head-on. He passed away on the way to the hospital. One of his bandmates lives but lost a leg. The music world was shocked and went dead. The silence didn't last long, though, because soon after, cases began. Johnny's boss hadn't kept his life insurance up to date. He didn't have the right to publish. The papers that were meant to keep his family safe had been thrown away. Billie Jean, Johnny's widow, was left all by herself with a lot of court bills and debt. Even though his records were still selling, she wasn't able to pay for her daughter's school. The profits were off limits to her. That's what the lawyers got. The rest was spent on taxes. Even though Johnny's songs were doing well, it was hard for his family to stay alive. Number 2. Billie Joe Spears. She was more than just a singer. Billie Joe Spears was a symbol. People heard her songs and felt like they were seen because they spoke up for women. It's All Over, Blanket on the Ground, Mr. Walker, and What I've Got in Mind were more than just catchy songs. They were strong. They told the truth when few others would have dared. And for a moment, Billie Joe could do nothing. But as the business changed, the attention went to other things. Her checks for royalties began to get smaller. Newer acts were played on the radio. Record companies got rid of well-known artists. She still had her voice, but her body was giving out on her. Surgery on her throat made her move more slowly. A lot of health problems grew. Gigs turned into favors in an instant. She played in small teams, not for glory, but to pay for petrol. At times, her pay barely covered the cost of her journey. The sets were not as big. There are fewer people. She kept going and singing, though, because she lived for music, even when it wasn't making her money. In the end, even that went away. She moved into a simple house. I sold some of my things just to get by. Even though she had a lot of gold songs, she died in 2011 with almost nothing to her name. She had a strong voice. Her songs will stay with you. She helped build a system that should have protected her, but it didn't. Number 1. Mel Street. You couldn't move when you heard Mel Street's words. Honest, deeply felt, and full of the truth. People who had ever felt broken could find comfort in his songs like Smoky Mountain Memories, If I Had a Cheatin' Heart, and You Make Me Feel More Like a Man. He was everywhere in the 1970s. 13 songs that made the Billboard Top 20. A job is going up quickly, but fame doesn't make up for pain. Behind the scenes, Mel was too weak to swim. Everything around him fell apart when his record label did. No more plans were made. The cash ran out, and the light went out. This depression came in and wouldn't go away. He kept acting, though, because he hoped things would get better. Back in 1978, on Halloween morning, Mel got ready for his show hours ahead of time. He smiled at his family and walked out the door. After some minutes, he killed himself. Friends and family were shocked and saddened by the news. There was no more cash, not even enough for a church service. Fans and friends had to raise money just to bury him. Radio stations kept playing his songs, but they didn't know that the man who made the music had died. His songs still did well after he died. Albums about people who have died made it into shops. But the people who mattered most never got the money. People who worked hard had a voice in Mel Street, and he died just like them. He was worn out, broke, and ignored by a business that owed him more. If this moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Click on the next video popping up on your screen. There's so much more waiting to be uncovered.